I would love to get your reaction on President-elect Donald Trump's recent comments regarding the Panama Canal because they have certainly stirred up some international controversy. Last week, he said that the U.S. was being charged, quote, highly unfair fees for ships traveling through the canal and that we are essentially being, quote, ripped off by Panama. He also floated that if something doesn't change, then the U.S. should demand that the canal, quote, be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. What are your thoughts on his comments?
Well, transit fees did go up on January 1st, but they went up because there have been problems in the canal, there have been improvements and all sorts of things, although I think some of the increases look excessive. But the issue is going to be the Panamanians are going to keep the canal. That's clear. And Trump is not going to get it. But nonetheless, I think that there does need to be a re-examination of Panama's relationships with China, and as well as some other things regarding the canal.
I want to talk about Panama's relationship with China, but if it's clear that Panama is keeping control of the canal, I mean, the Panama Treaty says that they have control of the canal, they've had it controlled for 25 years. Is this empty rhetoric? Will this get prices to go down? What do you think?
Well, there's always a negotiation with President Trump, so this could very well be the first round. And I'm sure Panama is concerned because the United States is the biggest user of the canal. And clearly we've got some rights under the treaty. So nonetheless, I think that Panama, although they say they will never return the canal, and that's right, I do think that they are willing to talk to Washington about the relationship between the United States and Panama, as well as the relationship between Panama and China.
What does that relationship look like, the one between Panama and China? Because President-elect Trump did post this on Truth Social in December, when President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away, meaning the Panama Canal, for $1 during his term in office. It was solely for Panama to manage, not China or anyone else. So we know that China is not managing the canal, Panama is, but what's that relationship? And do you think Donald Trump has a point?
Well, I think he does have a point because China is extremely influential in the canal zone and in Panama in general. And there have been presidents in Panama who've been much closer to Beijing than they've been to Washington. So, for instance, in 2017, the Panamanian government broke their relationships with Taiwan and established their ties with China. Also, China has gotten approval for some pretty dodgy projects in Panama, which eventually didn't go forward, but they do show the influence that the Chinese have in the canal zone. And China's investment and port operations are so pervasive that China probably could close off the canal in a wartime emergency. They're not the only country that could do that, but nonetheless, we can't allow that because clearly that is vital to the U.S. Navy and for U.S. shipping in general.
Is China's influence in Panama increasing, do you think? And who has the better relationship with Panama right now, the United States or China?
Well, right now I say China, and part of it is because President Trump's comments have angered not only Panama's president, but a lot of people there, as you might expect. So, China has a very polished ambassador to Panama right now. I think that the Chinese are pretty ascendant. I'm not sure that's going to last, Brittany, because part of the reason that China is so influential is because their economy means that they are the second largest user of the canal. China's economy, though, is showing signs of severe distress. And eventually, they may not be using the canal as much as they are now. So I think that they're pretty much at high tide when it comes to Panama.
When you're looking at a cozy relationship between China and Panama, with China's influence in Panama, what do you think that means for the United States?
Well, it means that, again, we're on the back foot in a critical zone because our Navy depends on that and commercial shipping does. So this is partly our fault because, President in and President out, we have neglected our hemisphere to the south of our border with Mexico, Central America, and South America as well. So I think we need to have, in Washington, just in general, regardless of what happens in Panama, we need to have a thorough look at our relations with the countries in the region. And also, I think that we need a government that actively promotes American investment and trade in Latin America. We are still Latin America's biggest trade partner, but that's because of our trade with Mexico. If you take Mexico out of the equation, China is the largest trade partner of Latin America.